Well, hi guys, welcome back to an episode of Eek Acres. Though I've been sick for a few days, I wanted to just get out here into our woods on our property and just do a little walking around. And I wanted to talk about something that I've thought about over the last 3 years since I discovered it when I did down in Pennsylvania. And this is something I've talked about before, and it's something I've tried to wrap my mind around since I saw what I did 3 years ago. This was back when my oldest brother was still alive, because he was with me, as well as my middle brother. I'm the youngest, so it was my two brothers and myself. And we were on a hike, and we were on a trail that was called the Interpretive Trail. And I came across something that made no logical sense whatsoever. It was the most puzzling thing I've ever seen in the woods. And I was beyond baffled. But I'm going to show you here what I'm talking about. I got to get over this large tree that fell. Boy, this thing must have made a sound when it come down. Look at this thing, you guys. Look at the size of that. It went over from its roots right there. Big, massive tree. Look at the size of that. Right near the house too. When this thing fell, it must have made a hell of a sound. But I wanted to show you this leaner, this massive leaner right here, right there, leaning against a tree way up there. I'm going to show you guys this thing. That's it right there. That is a huge tree, and it's caught way up there in the crotch of another tree. Well, what I want to talk about in this video is that I came across a tree the size of this one. This is an honest God true story, you guys. I'm not making this up. This actually happened, and I've got thousands of videos, and I've been going deep into my archives trying to find the video, because I did get it on video. I did show it. And because I was on a hike with my brothers, and I was doing a YouTube video at the time, and I came across a tree this big, and it had a perfectly straight chainsaw cut through it. So one end of the tree had been chainsawed, and the top of the tree was in a crotch of another tree, just like this one is. So the top of the tree was in the crotch of a neighboring tree, and the heavy end that had a perfectly chain cut saw through it was 14 feet above our heads on the Interpretive Trail in another crotch of another tree. So you have two trees standing with a strong enough crotch in each tree to support a tree this big that is over 3,000 pounds, more than a ton, suspended horizontally like this from one tree to another, 14 feet overhead. And on the tree, about 6 feet up from where the cut was. So it had to be cut down low, because 6 feet from where it was chainsawed up on the trunk of the tree was a reflective diamond trail marker. So when the tree was standing, it was neighboring the trail, because it had a trail marker on it. They only mark the trees that are right next to the trail or closest to the trail. So it was a tree that had been on the trail we were on, the Interpretive Trail. But it was chainsawed, and the end of it was sticking out from the crotch of the tree that was holding the heavy end, where the chainsaw cut was. It was sticking out about 5 feet. So just on the other side of the crotch of the tree that was holding it was the diamond trail marker, what's called a blaze. It had a blaze on it. And we walked under it. And I told my brothers to stop, and I says, look at this tree. I says, how in the hell did this tree get this high up overhead where someone had cut it? And the crazy thing was, you guys, as I looked around the trail that we were on, and this trail was very narrow, and it had, and it went downhill. It had a lot of roots and rocks on it, and it just kind of meandered all through the woods. It just zigzagged back and forth, but this trail was very narrow, and it was more like a goat path, like a goat trail. And there was a lot of ferns and a lot of soft green plants neighboring both sides of the trail. So I went along the trail just below where this tree was, the size of this one, and there was no stumps. Anywhere in the area, there were no stumps in the same diameter that matched the cut tree that was put into two crotches of two standing trees horizontal overhead, like it was the top of a doorway. And something that heavy to be lifted and put into the crotch of a tree to hold the cut end. Now, if you cut a tree and you fell a tree and the top went into a crotch, that would just be a common, normal thing to happen. But after it's cut and the heavy end is on the ground, how do you lift that up and wedge it into the crotch of another tree so many feet away? How do you do that 14 feet from the ground? It was at least 14 feet from the ground in the crotch of another tree, so the whole tree was being suspended by two standing trees 14 feet overhead. And I could not find a stump anywhere within 20 feet going in the one direction on the trail, or 20 feet back on the other direction of the trail, or anywhere in that circumference of that area. Anywhere in that area, there was no stump at all to signify where the cut tree that weighed over 3,000 pounds with a blaze on it came from, and how did it get placed 14 feet overhead. My brothers looked at it and they thought that that was odd and amazing, but it wasn't enough to make them think too much about it, and they continued on hiking without me as I stayed back studying what I was looking at, puzzled, wondering how did that tree get up there. There's no way a human being with all the help could lift a tree the size of that and put it into the crotch of two neighboring trees. It'd be like if you took that tree and had the tree go horizontally this way, spanning 14 feet overhead, and there was no cut stump to match the diameter and the size of the girth of the tree that was put above. And what that told me, because this trail, you guys, that we were hiking, this goat path that's called the Interpretive Trail, it's a small loop at Tracy Ridge Campground in McKean County, Pennsylvania. I've hiked their trails there a lot. They have a network of trails, including the North County Trail, which is over 60 miles long, goes through the Allegheny National Forest, which is over 550,000 acres, so over 500,000 acres of nothing but wilderness. Just dense wilderness all through that area, and all these different trails go off in all directions, all throughout the Allegheny National Forest. And the Interpretive Trail is just a very short loop trail just outside of the campground. And because of its location and where this tree was and the denseness of the forest, you would not be able to get any machinery into that location to lift a tree of this size and this weight to put it up into the crotch of two neighboring trees to keep it suspended horizontally. And so the other blazes on the trees that were on that trail matched the blaze that was on the tree that was overhead. It was a diamond reflective blaze marker, the same that was on the tree that was overhead. And because there was no stump that had been cut with a chainsaw to match where the tree came from, meant to me, in my mind, because of common sense, that it had to be brought from somewhere else. So it was a tree that was brought from somewhere else on the trail, because there was no stump in the area of where the tree was to indicate that it was cut at that location. So if there's no stump, then the tree was brought from somewhere else and suspended between two other trees to keep it horizontal in the air 14 feet above the ground. That made me realize that there is things that go on in the woods that just cannot be explained, and what has that kind of strength, because, you know, people that believe in Bigfoot would say, well, Bigfoot did that. Well, even if a creature like Bigfoot was real, I don't even think they would be strong enough to lift a tree that is in excess of 3,000 pounds and put it 14 feet overhead. I just don't think that could be done. Not even by something like that. And I'm not a believer in Bigfoot. So, but it did tell me that something did do it. And what could lift something that heavy and put it so high above when it wasn't even from that area? Because there was no stump to match it. It just made me think that there is some type of supernatural power out there in the forest that can do things and likes to play with nature. But whatever the hell could do that, I would not want to run across it. That I do know, because that whatever did that had a strength that is just, well, I couldn't even imagine. I just couldn't even imagine having that kind of strength to lift a tree that would weigh what that one right there weighs, and have it be suspended and held there by two standing living trees with a blaze marker on it. I really, really hope that I can find that footage that's on my computer. It might even be on some flash drives. I got a lot of files, you guys, I got to go through, but I did get it on video, and there were several witnesses to the tree. And the fact that we couldn't find a tree stump, could not explain how that could get up there, because there's no machinery that could make it down there, nor was there any damage or ruts from heavy hydraulic machinery coming into the woods to do something like that. And why would they? There's no way you could get them down in there, because this trail is surrounded by giant rocks and bear caves. I mean, these rocks are millions and millions of years old. There's several tons, giant rocks, huge rocks that are from past glaciers. You just couldn't get machinery down in there where the interpretive trail is to put a tree of that weight and size and girth 14 feet above ground. I've never been able to explain something like that, but that was 3 years ago. I'd like to make it back up to the ridge at the campground and walk the interpretive trail again and see if 3 years later, if that tree is still suspended up there in the crotch of those trees that are holding it up 14 feet above the ground. So if someone ever wanted to know what is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in all the years I've been on this planet of hiking and camping and fishing and being in the outdoors, that was one of the most memorable, craziest things I'd ever seen, because there was nothing to explain where that tree came from. It wasn't cut on location. And how could something lift it that high above and place it like it was when it's so large in diameter and so extremely heavy? And there was no damage to the bark, like it was lifted with chains or any type of machinery that has, you know, something with a thumb on it, like some kind of claw, you know, like logging equipment. There was nothing showing that it had any damage from anything putting it up there. So something I could never explain, and I've never seen anything like it since. I've never seen anything like it before or since. But I would like to get up there before the snow flies and hike that trail, because it's not that far down from the trailhead. So I'd like to go up there and see if it's still there, or if over time it eventually, the trees that are holding it died and the limbs just snapped and the thing fell to the ground. But either way, it should still be there, even if it's laying on the ground, and it should still have the trail blaze on it. But that was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in all the years I've hiked on trails. Just thought I'd tell you guys about that, because sometimes you see crazy things in the woods. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you again in the next one. Bye-bye.